Hey everybody, Dr. Shook here. So today is May 24th, and this is going to be another sauna session. Now, right now I'm actually on lunch, so I'm sweating profusely, but I'm going to take a shower and head back to the office here in just a few minutes. So I want to share with you guys, this is really one of the only times that I have to do videos right now. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and share with you guys some things. I always get these things that pop in my head that I know would be so beneficial for people just to know because they're not commonly talked about, or a Western medical approach may not recognize some of the topics and things that I'm thinking about. And so you might not get this information anywhere else. So in this session, what I want to talk about are the 3 stages of autoimmunity. So a lot of people that I work with are autoimmune, and in particular, I see a lot of Hashimoto's. It's the most common autoimmune thyroid condition, but we do see Graves' disease as well. It's not as common. The only difference in Graves' and Hashimoto's from the immune standpoint is that the immune system is attacking a receptor with Graves, okay, and in Hashimoto's, the immune system is attacking an enzyme, the TPO and the thyroid globulin inside the thyroid cell. So that's the main difference. With Graves, it's attacking a receptor on the outside of the cell that stimulates the cell to produce more and more thyroid hormone. So that's why you'll take the anti-thyroid medications with Graves, because it blocks that receptor and it keeps the immune system from dinging or attacking those antibodies, which will cause this overproduction of thyroid hormone. So here's the thing: most of the time, what I primarily work with in practice is thyroid dysfunction. So people that have Hashimoto's, people that have Graves, people that have had thyroidectomies, or people that they have all these thyroid-related symptoms, and they want someone to help them investigate it. So the most common cause of hypothyroidism, which is the most common problem in the United States, is Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is this autoimmune attack. So when we talk about these different issues with autoimmunity, what you have to realize is if you have Hashimoto's, number one, it's likely the cause of the majority of your hypothyroid symptoms. If you don't address the autoimmune mechanism, so the autoimmunity where your body's attacking the thyroid, for one, you're likely not going to get resolution of your symptoms. You're not going to be, if you do feel better taking medications, you're not going to be as good as you could be, okay? Because there are a lot of things that the autoimmune process does that will cause your body to not be able and use the thyroid hormone optimally. And then the other thing you have to consider is anytime you're autoimmune with any autoimmune condition, you very likely have other autoimmune conditions. You're just not aware of them if they haven't caused significant tissue destruction that's resulting in symptoms that causes you to present to the doctor. Then the doctor decides to order antibody tests. And those antibody tests, if they happen to be from a lab that uses more sensitive measures, you're more likely to get positives if it's there. But a lot of the conventional immunological testing that your doctor will do, it doesn't check all the antibodies, and it's not as reliable as some of the state-of-the-art testing that's available today. So my point is this: multiple autoimmune conditions. All right, if you have one autoimmune condition, there's some research that's shown us that there's a great likelihood that you have 6 or 7. These autoimmune conditions come in groups. When your body loses tolerance to the thyroid, for example, it's very likely that it's lost tolerance to other tissues. The only reason you know that it's lost tolerance to the thyroid is because you're having symptoms and someone checked it and discovered it, right? So anytime I'm working with patients that are autoimmune, I'm always looking in my history. I'm always talking to them and observing and checking to see, what else is here. Where else is this autoimmunity? What else is it attacking? My patients that have Hashimoto's, I commonly see dizziness, digestive problems, blood sugar dysregulation, anxiety, and depression. Listen, all of these things could be tissues, could be expanded autoimmunity. GAD65, GAD65 is an enzyme. It's a glutamic acid decarboxylase 65. It converts the glutamate to GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter, a brain chemical. It runs the nervous system. It helps to calm down the nerves. If you have an autoimmune attack against GAD65, it will destroy the enzyme that takes glutamate and makes it into GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that calms down and slows down nerve firing. Glutamate is excitatory to the nerves, so it can create anxiety and all these other problems. So we see antibodies. So we'll do a multiple tissue antibody test where we check to see where else is this autoimmunity. It's really, really important for us to understand what else is happening with you, because if you have attacks against GAD65, GAD65 is also in the pancreas. And so there can be issues with blood sugar. We look also for very commonly we see when there's autoimmunity against the thyroid, we see that there's autoimmunity against the cerebellum. The cerebellum is a back part of the brain. It's involved with it's basically like a processing station, and it's like the mini brain. It helps with balance, posture. If I see patients that come in and they're dizzy and they have dizziness and they have Hashimoto's, that is on my mind. That's like, do you have brain antibodies? Do you have autoimmunity against the brain? So we will do, testing and things to help us determine what's happening. And then there's transglutaminase is very common. Transglutaminase is an enzyme that helps you break down gluten, and that's in the digestive tract. You'll commonly see these things. They're more commonly found together. So there's all this stuff that we have to consider. And if you have autoimmunity, it is the super priority in my office. That's like the one thing that we want to figure out. What are the drivers? So when we look at autoimmunity, there's a few things we have to consider. So what are the drivers of autoimmunity? Well, we want to what I do in my practice is I take this approach. Detect, remove, repair. Okay? Detect the problems with reliable testing and markers that are repeatable. Remove whatever you find. So the things that we'll check for autoimmunity, you're going to find infections, chronic infections, bacterial parasites, yeast overgrowth are very common, but you can have dental infections, you can have a number of different infections. Okay, so infections are number one. Number two, we want to look at environmental chemicals. Okay, so we know now there's a huge growing body of evidence. It's one of the reasons I'm in here and I'm sweating, is because we know that environmental chemicals can trigger an immunological response. They can fire up the nervous system and cause you to exacerbate your autoimmunity or to trigger the autoimmunity. So we won't just do level testing. We don't want to just look at the levels. Everyone today has a ton of these chemicals. There was a study that came out, and there was this great test. They checked this guy. It's interesting. I'll digress just for a minute, okay? So there was a guy who they checked his blood levels. I think this was like National Geographic or something. I can't remember. I'll have to find the study. So this guy had they checked his blood. He had 500 environmental chemicals, okay? He goes and takes a shower. After the shower, he has nearly double. They drew his blood again. He has nearly double the amount of chemicals in his blood. Jaw-dropping to me. I mean, that just tells you how polluted our water is, how polluted our environment is. That's one of the reasons I'm sweating, guys, because this is one of the detoxification pathways, right? So your liver helps to eliminate and biotransform things. The sauna will help to sweat so that you can eliminate these chemicals. There are, your urine. All these things help you to excrete and eliminate these chemicals. But let me caution you against doing sauna or heat therapy. This is only appropriate when your body can handle this stuff, okay? So I'm not giving you guys any medical advice. I'm just kind of talking about, things that I think are really important to people that have Hashimoto's, Graves', autoimmunity, and thyroid dysfunction. I'm not giving you any medical advice, but I'm going to tell you right now, sweating is important, but you have to be very careful. When I first started using a sauna, I was in here for 2 minutes. Now I could stay in here for an hour and sweat, and it's always, a time and a place for what's appropriate for each individual. But I can tell you the first thing that I do with people is I don't have them detox. You've got to help decrease inflammation, improve the GI tract, the barrier, the gut barrier. So if it's inflamed and you have pathogenic intestinal permeability or leaky gut, if that's there, then you want to do the best you can to determine why that's happening, why that's there, so that you can help heal the barrier system, which is the gut walls, the barrier system. You want to help balance blood sugar and decrease inflammation. So a lot of times decreasing inflammation has to do with all the things I'm talking about here: detect, remove, repair. So the approach that we'll take. So when we detect, we want to figure out, are there these infections? Are there environmental chemicals that are triggering an immunological response? I'm not talking about doing a urinary test where you see if you have high levels. Everybody has high levels, right? Everyone's got high levels of these chemicals. It's not that those tests aren't useful, but it's more important when we're dealing with autoimmunity, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people that understand immunology. It's important to know what's exacerbating and triggering an immune response. So we want to know what chemicals is your immune system reacting to, right? The levels are valuable, but we want to know what's triggering an immune response. So we'll get advanced testing for that. And then we want to look at food proteins or peptides, partial. Primarily, it's you don't react when we talk about reactivity to foods, okay? And we talk about food sensitivities. It's a huge thing. People are talking about gluten, and it's, I think gluten's a big problem. I know it is, and there are major issues with it. When we start talking about these food proteins, these peptides, what you're dealing with is you're dealing with so every food has a protein in it, right? So there's beef protein, there's lettuce protein, there's every single food has proteins. Foods are made up of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, right? But the proteins, what a protein is it's basically, if you can imagine, like a chain, right? So a chain, and it has links, and each of these links are all, they're all connected, and say the chain is like 10 links, right? Well, that's the protein molecule, the peptide, that's the protein molecule that's unique to, let's say it's beef, okay? Well, whenever you consume the beef, your hydrochloric acid and then the enzymes that your pancreas and your gallbladder will release will help to take that chain and cut the links individually apart so that they're free floating and you have individual links. The links are amino acids, okay? So when you join amino acids together in a sequence, you make a protein, okay, or a partial protein, right? So what happens is that you can have reactivity to these food proteins or the partial proteins. So let's say that you have enzymes that break down or cut a portion of that protein down. So it doesn't break every single link. Like let's say you have 3 amino acids still stuck together. So you have a short little peptide here. What happens is if you have intestinal permeability or leaky gut, those sequences, those partial sequences can cross through the GI barrier into the bloodstream and they can trigger an immunological response. Now that's what we do when we check for foods that you can have an immune response to. And what we check in our office is we don't check the IgE, the anaphylactic responses. We check IgA and IgG, which there are very few labs that will check both of these combined. We check those things. We check cooked versus raw. We use state-of-the-art laboratories that allow us to get results that are highly repeatable. I mean, that's one of my problems when a lot of people will come to see us, and I hate it because, people come to see us and they bring all these tests, and I'm like, thinking in my head, these tests are just not reliable. They're not up to the par for me to make decisions on, to help you make decisions with your healthcare, right? So we get the tests that are reliable. They're priceless. I mean, these tests are priceless. They tell us what the immune system is doing. So we detect, right? We look for infections. We look for environmental chemicals. We look for these food proteins, right? Those are the primary immunological stimulants. And then we look to see nutritionally, do you have what you need to balance the immune system? Does your body have adequate vitamins and minerals to regulate the immune system? So you have a regulatory part of your immune system called the Th3, T helper 3 system. So these proteins and these vitamins, these minerals and nutrients can help to produce more regulatory T cells that will help to balance the immune response. So we want to look at you nutritionally. Do you have what you need there so that your body can regulate itself, right? Do you just have what you need to carry out normal chemistry? So we detect, we then focus on removing, right? So we remove all of these things from your diet, from your environment that we can. We focus on supporting and filling in deficiencies nutritionally. And then what we do is we repair, right? So detect, remove, repair. Then we start repairing with very specific dietary changes, nutritional supplementation protocols, and things that are specific to you and your immune system. This is the thing that I hate about all these. I don't hate anything. I mean, a lot of these dietary approaches that people are taking, they're good, but they're not. It's not this, this fix-all. It's not this miraculous cure. A lot of people improve because these foods are drivers to their problems, to their immunologically, these foods are stimulating problems for them. So they remove them. But you know how many people we find that have infections and parasites and yeast overgrowth and all these environmental chemicals? I mean, it's a huge number. And if you don't know, then what you do is you waste time, you have progression of autoimmunity, and you lose quality of life and opportunity. I mean, it's just get the test done, folks. I mean, I know these testing is an investment in your health. I mean, it is, because I could get into a whole nother topic on that, but it's really important for you to understand that the most important thing is to be aware, right? And then the second thing is if you want to, try to peel this onion, as I tell my patients, and my distance clients, I tell them we've got an onion. So what we do is we look at this outside of this onion and we study it as closely as possible, and we determine the best way to peel that first layer. And so that's where a lot of this testing and these things come up. So what we do is we peel that layer, and then we want to see on reassessment what's left, right? So what does the second layer look like? What's still remaining? What can we do? What can we change to help you continue to peel that onion until we get to the root drivers and get you as healthy as we can, right? So that's the goal. So one of the things I want to talk about, that was great. I mean, I'm just kind of talking here about a few different topics. One of the things I really want to talk about in this video were the 3 stages of autoimmunity, because what we know, and this is not really recognized by Western medicine, this process. This is something that I learned from Datis Karazian. He is one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met, and I'm very, I've had an opportunity to learn from him and some other brilliant doctors. There's so many people trying to help you guys, and I've just had a great opportunity to learn from him. I highly recommend if you're interested in a great book. He's written a book, Why Do I Still Have Thyroid Symptoms When My Lab Tests Are Normal? We follow his approach very closely. He's top notch. He's the number one guy. If I had a problem, he's the guy I'd go see. So okay, so when we get into these 3 stages of autoimmunity, you got to look at number 1. The first stage is that there's immune system reactivity. So this is where you can do testing, immunological testing, and you'll see antibodies, but there's no tissue destruction yet. There's no symptomatology. What we know is that this can occur 5 to 15 years prior to actual symptoms beginning. Okay, so this is the ideal time to detect what's going on so that you can put in a plan. Okay, so you can start and create a plan. Now, of putting this thing into remission as much as possible. Once you're autoimmune, you are always autoimmune. The gene is turned on. Okay, but the approach and what we want to do is put this thing, dampen the immune response, put it into remission. So if your autoimmunity, when it's full blown and raging, was a light that was, whether it was as bright as it would go, right? If those were a similar comparison, a extremely bright light representative of full blown autoimmunity where the immune system is raging, what we want to do is like if we had a dimmer switch, we want to turn that down to such a degree that the light looks like it's off, but we know it's still on, right? That's putting it into remission. That's dampening it, right? Or at least turning it down so it's really low, right? That's our goal, and that's why we want to do all the different immunological tests and things that we'll do for our workup. Now, that's stage 1, right? So that's where you have the opportunity. Now, stage 2 is where you start to have tissue destruction and you start to have symptoms that are present. So if you have Hashimoto's, this might be someone that you might be taking medications or replacement, you might not. Okay, this is where you still have a window of opportunity in a lot of cases to make a big difference with the immune system, but you have to take action, because this is where you're starting to see actual tissue destruction. And once your thyroid starts getting destroyed, it gets, every attack on the thyroid, the thyroid gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Its capacity to make thyroid hormone diminishes. Okay, so that's one thing. That's stage 2. So then stage 3 is where it becomes recognizable autoimmune condition by our Western medical doctors. And now I'm generalizing, but not all doctors, they realize this is a problem. But in the majority, according to what a lot of plans and insurance policies and things like that, what they go by, that's their rules. They're not going to do anything about it. And let me tell you, whenever medically, what do they do about autoimmune conditions from a pure medical perspective, right? We're not looking at this functional medicine perspective. What they do is they prescribe anti-inflammatories and steroids and then immunosuppressants. And I'm going to tell you right now, those are some very dangerous drugs. Does it not make sense? To determine what's driving the process? Improve your exposure to these things, right? Work on working with the body rather than taking something to force decreased inflammatory chemistry, right? To force a medication to force decreased inflammatory chemistry, to force an anti-inflammatory or steroidal effect, to force immunosuppression, suppressing the immune system. These immunological suppressing drugs, right? These immunosuppressants, they're known. Just look inside the side effects. They say very clearly can cause cancer because it shuts down your surveillance of cancer cells. That's it. Well, I'm not going to say it shuts them down, but it diminishes it significantly, right? We know that secondary cancers are real. They acknowledge that. That is such a dangerous game. There's a time and place for everything. I'm not anti-medicine at all, man. I'm so thankful for the doctors that we have and and our rheumatologist and our oncologist and everyone that's trying to help, because everyone's trying to help you. No one's not trying to help you. I want you to know that. And I'm not anti-medicine at all. I actually have a great appreciation, and I love the fact that we have these people that are specializing in other areas, because they have stressful jobs. Let me tell you, they have stressful jobs. They're on the front lines, So let's go into stage 3, right? So the stage 3 is where you have 70% or greater typically destruction of your tissue. It's medically recognizable in an imaging study, an MRI, or an ultrasound. That's where they're going to say, yes, that's autoimmunity. Typically, that's where they're going to recognize it. And that can be a stage where you're doing a lot of damage control, and it can be very, very hard to help someone. So there are these 3 stages of autoimmunity I want to talk about. It's the early stage, and then you have this second stage where you have some symptoms and tissue destruction, and you have this third stage where you have massive tissue destruction. Okay, so if you guys have any questions or you need anything, just let us know. We're here for you. I'm going to keep teaching you guys. I have so much information to share with you on new research and things that I would, you guys need to know about. You need to be empowered so that you can take your health back. I'll keep posting as soon as I can. I try to do the sauna a few times a week. It's fantastic. Like, I got to get out of here right now. Like, of course, I've been talking for 21 minutes. But anyway, I hope you guys really enjoy this. If you have questions, post them here. Contact us and let us know. I'll try to do everything I can to help you guys. But I wanted to answer some of the questions that the people commonly have and that we're getting right now. I'm just really inundated with people that are in dire need of help. So I don't have as much time to educate, but it is my mission to help you guys, okay? I really want to help teach and just make a difference, okay? So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for taking 21 minutes to listen to me talk, okay? See you later. Hey guys, Dr. Shook, thank you for viewing our videos. I hope they help you out. If you want to, just subscribe to our channel somewhere here. You can watch a video that YouTube's actually selected for you, so hopefully it'll help you out. If you need any other information or resources, just look in the description. We've got links to our website, to our 9 lab test guidebook, and everything else that we do. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great